Good evening to everybody. And so, Díomh go léir agus fáilte rógisteach. I would like especially to welcome our first citizen, Mayor John Moran. Tá fíorfáilte le wrote on sign up. He's returning to where he launched his campaign to become the first ever directly elected Mayor of Limerick, and with a huge challenge ahead of him. But thank you all for coming in this evening. It's a lovely evening. I've an awful funny feeling a lot of you had to be dragged away off the golf course. Or maybe it's the television screens with all that's happening. But it's lovely to see such a nice crowd here and such a friendly lot. Now, we've just changed the order of business because this is a very relaxed affair. So the first person I'm going to call on to speak this evening is Dominic, who is from the director of the Limerick Writers Centre. Just to explain, Dominic will obviously explain his own role, but it just struck me that it was Patrick Kavanagh who said that Ireland, you know, the standing army of Irish poets was never less than 10,000. And so if you add in all the other writers, I think you have nearly, probably somewhere like the size of Limerick City in terms of, but what Dominic has done since 2008 with his colleagues in the Limerick Writers Centre is to actually provide an outlet for some of that 10,000 in the standing army. And so there you go, Dominic.
Norma. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for coming out this evening to celebrate the publication of From Keeper to Keeper, the new book of short stories by local author Pat McLoughlin. This new publication marks the 179th title we've helped see into print since the inception of our community publishing project in 2009. And it also continues our aim to publish local authors and their work. And I was reminded by Facebook today that it is, incidentally, 15 years to the day since we first opened our doors in 2008. This is our 5th collection of work by Pat, and each book is always eagerly anticipated by his loyal readers. The title, From Keeper to Keeper, holds significance. It alludes to the human yearnings for roots and our perpetual struggle to both honour our past and forge a legacy for the future. The stories have been described as from a familiar world, peopled with characters that we know and recognise. If, as the novelist Virginia Woolf has stated, that books are the mirror of the soul, well then Pat has presented for our entertainment a very well polished mirror indeed. As I mentioned, this is our 179th title, published by the Limerick Writers Centre, since we started our community publishing programme in 2009. Now, I don't want to give the impression that this is only a numbers game, but I believe each one of those 179 titles is a real record of what people think and write about today. And if not for publishers like us, this record could be lost to future generations. Over the years, our publishing efforts have embraced a rich array of genres, from the lyrical depths of poetry to the introspective realms of memoirs, the intricate tapestries of history, and the sweeping narratives of novels, and of course poetry and the short story. Our mission has been unwavering: to ignite and sustain a vibrant literary culture within our community by empowering writers and poets to bring their unique voices into the world in print. We champion authors of all walks of life, whether they are dedicated professionals or those who find joy and meaning in writing for personal enrichment, healing, or enlightenment. Pat McLaughlin's books are part of this mission, offering readers an often intimate journey through the complexities of human connections, exploring in the process life's psychological and moral dilemmas. For writers are dealing with language, And language is not merely a method of communication. The world out there does not readily expose itself to us. Language is the force that unlocks the world. Language converts disorder into order, chaos into structure, nothingness into meaning. And through books and the written word also offer us entertainment. At the Limerick Writers Centre, it is our belief that it is the right of every writer to see their dedication and creative spirit take shape in the form of a published work. When someone starts writing, or indeed starts any kind of a project, it is filled with inner possibilities. But without outside help, projects can lose energy and fade away. And this is where the Limerick Writers Centre can help and push that project to complete the octave. Despite the pessimists who once declared the end of the printed book, we find ourselves in an era where the appetite for tangible literature remains hearty and robust. Bookshops continue to fill their shelves, libraries to catalogue new titles, and publishers to champion the printed word. Books endure as a formidable conduit for conversation and cultural exchange. Their technology may be old, but their ability to connect us is still cutting edge. Opening a physical book grants you an uninterrupted, ad-free, cookie-free experience, while closing it ensures your privacy remains intact. No pesky notifications in sight. I'm grateful to you all for gathering here to partake in this celebration with Pat's family and friends. And remember, we are a community press, and all our books are collaborations with our authors. So when you buy Pat's book, you're not only supporting him, but other writers also. Just before I finish, I'd like to say a word of thanks, first of all, to Mayor John Moran for officially coming here to launch the book. I'd also like to thank Norma Prender for emceeing the event, and a special word of thanks to our book designer, Catherine Shields, for her work. And last but not least, all our wonderful volunteers who helped us keep the show on the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominic. I think we're very privileged here in Limerick to have such a unique project ongoing for so long and keeping going, because it's not always as easy as Dominic makes it sound, I think, but it's a fantastic project and deserves all our support. And as I say, it's quite a unique project and one that we need to cherish. Our next speaker is Paddy Fulmerman, known to many of you, and indeed there has never been a launch without Paddy. I was thinking about it today, and I have a feeling that, obviously Pat does most of the hard work. I think, in fairness, Paddy does a fair bit of the heavy lifting as well, especially when it comes to the commas and the full stops. So I'll call on the man with no full stops. Dr. Paddy Full.
Vera, Sakaja, Peace Marie. I know that you're anxious to hear from our newly elected mayor. So the good news is I shall be brief. To start with, those of you who are familiar and interested in the GAA, you're probably very familiar with the slogan, Jim is winning matches. You know about that?
Yeah.
It refers to Jim McGuinness, manager of the Donegal County football team, who has had, reasonable success. Well, if Jim McLoughlin or Jim McGuinness is winning matches, Pat McLoughlin is writing stories. Problem is, McGuinness's winning spree came to an end when they were beaten by Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final. I see no end to Pat's writing spree. I think that will be continued, and there is more to follow. In 2018, Pat published his first collection of short stories, To Weave with Words, and he kindly asked me if I would write a preface. My concluding remarks were as follows, and I made a prediction. I said, My fervent hope is that each reader will enjoy Pat's work just as much as I did, and will appreciate Pat's rare talent and ability to captivate. I am sure that Pat's next problem will be the many requests from his readers for much more of the same. That was 6 years ago. Roll forward the clock, 2024. Pat has now published 4 collections of short stories, 63 in all, I believe, and 2 novels. And by any set of criteria, no matter how you measure that, that is a highly impressive literary output. And I think one that deserves our congratulations. Both of us. I mean, let's be honest, there's always an inner glow of satisfaction when your prediction comes true. So I get many of them wrong, but I got that one right. Now to his latest publication, From Keeper to Keeper. I would describe this as an eclectic compilation of short stories. They range from the autobiographical to the anecdotal, to historical events, to sporting events, and he doesn't shirk contemporary issues. He deals with homelessness and immigration, but he deals with them from the perspective of those most adversely affected. He deals with them from what is it like to be at the receiving end of bias, prejudice, discrimination. And so he creates characters that we can believe in and that we can conceive their plight and acknowledge that sometimes there's more that maybe all of us can and should do in such situations. In his stories, you'll find tragedy, comedy, joy, sadness, loss, hope, humour, wit. But they're all seen from the perspectives of an empathy with and an understanding of our human strengths and weaknesses, of our human talents and our human frailties. And some stories are accompanied by poems, and I believe they add a further enrichment to the reading experience. One of Pat's many strengths as a writer is his ability to take the ordinary and transform it into the extraordinary by creating plots that are genuine and introducing us to characters that are credible. But then we're taken on a literary journey to an unexpected and to an unanticipated destination. Now obviously I am very familiar with Pat's stories because my red biros are now running out. But when he brings his stories to me and I read them, I sometimes find myself saying to myself, oh my goodness, I did not expect that. There is generally a twist in the tale. And just to give a little flavour of what's in store for you, the readers, in his story, The Mean Grim Reaper, I think that will raise a chuckle with memories of the first confession, echoes of Frank O'Connor. But the ending of the story, I'm afraid, will evoke quite a contrasting emotion. The 7 o'clock news and badger baiting, I think those are examples of humour at its best. A spitting image and Pele, they'll have a special appeal for all animal lovers, and in particular for those who hold a special affection for our canine companions. Then we have A Can of Worms. I really enjoyed that one, because Pat now went into the previously uncharted waters of adultery and infidelity. Serious stuff. But however, as I pointed out, things are not always as they appear to be on the surface. And the ending of that tale, A Can of Worms, trust me, it is just brilliant. That story alone, Pat, and you've got a bestseller.
Thanks, mate.
So, once again, Cocarticus to Pat, congratulations to him, to his family, and my gratitude to him for inviting me to play a very small part in his highly successful literary odyssey. I said I would be brief. I hope I have done that for you.
Wishy as ever, fiercely enjoyable. We now come to our special guest of the evening, the Mayor John Moran. This is a man who I'd say could tell a queer few tales. He has had a most adventurous life around the world in terms of his career. As we know, anybody who was keen to know who was standing in the election, he's qualified in law, he's a lawyer, he's worked on Wall Street in investment banking, as an entrepreneur, as a negotiator, as Secretary General of the Department of Finance, and actually as a cordon bleu chef, which I was quite surprised to hear about. Now, I don't know if he has much to say about that tonight, but it is a particular privilege that this man, who has set himself a very challenging agenda to carry out 101 actions in 101 days, that he's here tonight to maybe add a little to his agenda. So please give a very warm welcome to Mayor John Moran.
Thanks very much. Well, that was too kind. The thing is that unfortunately I didn't know when we set out the 101 actions that I was going to be doing this, even though I'm absolutely honoured to have done it, or I could have made it 102 actions in 101 days, and I have one to tick on the way home. But no, look, it's a real pleasure to be here. As was mentioned earlier, this was actually where, in some ways, the mayoral journey began for me, because this is where we had our launch, and I can see a number of familiar faces in the crowd. That, again, I want to thank them and everyone else that helped us on that journey. Because it was a lot of fun, but there are certain events that you do, and this being one of them, where you feel a bit of a fraud actually doing it. My partner's the big book lover in our house, and I'm the person that has spent now about 12 years since I left the Department of Finance saying, I've got to write that book, I've got to write the book. So I'm either going to learn two things tonight. It's either that this man's going to actually achieve to tell me how you actually sit down and finish the book off, since he's done so many, or I have just found the ghostwriter who will be writing along the way. Because, and I'll come back to that in a minute about one of the stories. I've actually, luckily enough, picked a story to talk to, the only story I think Paddy didn't actually mention. So I can get to give you another insight later. But I want to first mention and thank sort of the Limerick Writers Centre, you know, for the work that they do in Limerick, because I think everybody that had to wade through the mayoral programme or watch me in action in terms of the public events knows that the Limerick that I hope will manage to create out of this new experiment with the Rathkeale Mayor has very much at its centre the concept of creativity in all its forms, whether that's writers, whether it's artists, whether it's people doing graphic design, or just software developers or gamers or whatever. Because in some ways that is going to be the world of the future, as we kind of deal with things like AI and others, and the challenges that they bring to the way we actually operate today. And so a lot of what we've been trying to do is to find new ways to actually bring together communities and clusters of people that can themselves enrich each other and enrich others. And there's absolutely no better way than to kind of have a homegrown, if you want, place at which Irish writers who are from Limerick can actually be showcased. And I think, you know, as I go around Limerick in doing speeches like this, you learn little bits of extra, you know, jewels that we have along the way. And I mean, I didn't realise it was that many books. It's almost 200 at this stage. You know, to actually have that is an amazing achievement already in such a short period of time, and one to be encouraged, and certainly one to be congratulated. The other reason that I think it's really important for local authors, and indeed having a local tradition of publishing books, is, and I think, Pat, you probably deserve a credit for this, this is the second book launch I've done since I took over this role, and both of the authors have picked charities to donate their work that they've actually created. So not only is it hard enough to write the book, but then to actually think that the proceeds of that should be given to somebody else is, I think, something that deserves an extra sort of commendation. And in fact, if I was going to ask for one round of applause for that kind of thing, I would ask for that for Pat, if you don't mind. Then I come to the book, right? And I suppose every one of us have different styles in terms of what we pick from books and stuff like that. But despite the fact I couldn't disagree with anything else that's been said, I think the thing that jumped out at me was that little twist at the end of the stories. But the way that this is actually in such a short number of pages, so, which is certainly another lesson from my book as to how I end up shortening all of those lovely stories, is how quickly Pat gets you immersed into a different reality that is so realistic. And the one that jumped out, I mean, those of you who might know something about me, the paradigm shift. I just asked him, I said, you clearly have had, or had to have had, an experience in your life in terms of a mental issue or a health issue that was that serious. Because as somebody who went through cancer and woke up the same way as you did a couple of hours after a serious operation without knowing what was going and has happened and all that, I just found myself repeating that part of my life and that 24 hours reading that book or that little story, and I just can't believe that somebody could capture, because I think you have to live that to actually understand just how well it has been captured in terms of that. But one thing that really jumped out, and it shows the insightness, there was sort of two things I suppose. One was fine, was the description of this person. Now, whether it was you or not, I don't know, but the wife taking you off and refusing the ambulance and taking you off in the car because of the dangers. Well, we did exactly the same thing, to get to run away. And it was only after the fact that we realised what probably a stupid thing that had been, given how ill I was and in danger of actually having the intestines rupture effectively, which is why it was. But at that quick moment, you don't think, you just run, right? The other thing I thought was a really insightful thing about that was the one-liner, and it only took one sentence for you to pick it, that actually it is the patient in some ways is not the one to worry about. It's the people around the patient who are worrying more about the patient than the patient himself. And I just thought that if you read these stories slowly and carefully, there's just every sentence counts, which is really the style or the mark of a great writer. And all that said, I know sort of, you can get invited to a lot of things. This is one where I'm really honoured to be here, right? Because it just matches that. Well, first of all, the fact that I was being accused in East Limerick of being a West Limerick man, which was the moment when I couldn't decide, was I going to win the election because I wasn't from the city, or had I no hope because I was from West Limerick and the people in East Limerick wouldn't like it. Luckily enough, it worked out okay. But that combination of that, and look, I know I've been braved on a lot of the work you've done since you moved to Newcastle West. We won't hold it against you from Newport, but happily Limerick gained when you decided to move over here. Obviously we've all the work you've done in the Limerick Leader and the stuff that people have read along, but I already look forward to the next one. I suppose I would say Paddy perhaps a little bit less if he's not got any pens. I don't know what you do when you launch a book officially. I mean, am I supposed to crack a bottle of champagne here or something like that if I could? But all I can say is I encourage you all to do this. Now, the one small thing I did learn on the way in, though, when I was actually talking to Pat, and I called him, well, I'm a fraud for standing up here and having it. I think you're missing a trick here on these launches, right? So when Damien drags me to these launches, there's a line normally caused afterwards where people insist that the author has to put their name on the book that they've signed. So I told him I'm going to suggest that at the end of this, you can all queue up and he'll actually write your name on the books, rather than this idea of just writing them before in an anonymous sort of way, because these books will be worth a lot of money in the future, so you want to get your name on them. Listen, Pat, congratulations. Absolute pleasure for me to be here, and I think it's also a credit to yourselves, because sometimes it is a lonely world writing books. And when this many people turn up, I think it probably goes to convince Pat that it's well worth putting the effort into the next book that we're all looking forward to. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. That was splendid. The best kind of introduction, I'd say, that Pat could have wanted for this, as was pointed out, his 6th book. I'm not going to say much, only to say I do think always it's hard to put yourself out there and to put your name out there as a writer. And he's been a brave man 6 times, and now he has to face ye. So, Pat.
Friends and colleagues and family. Great to see such a sizable crowd here tonight. And I know that people have travelled from near, far and wide, and that's very much appreciated. I see golfers and scribblers and ESP colleagues and what have you down there, but my long-suffering family, I think they've been great supporters from day one, and they've never let me down. You're all very welcome, as previous speakers have said, and again, people ask me what keeps me going, and I think it's the positive feedback and the compliments and that. I'll be honest, the very first book I launched in 2008, a few days beforehand, I was terrified. I said, what in the name of God am I doing? What do people think it is? But now, from the feedback, from positive feedback from people, you know, it's very encouraging. Now, some people ask me, where did the stories come from? And when I say I don't know, they kind of look at me in bemusement, and that's true. Spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle said, and I quote, "All true artists, whether they know it or not, create from a place of no mind, from inner stillness." When we discover this, we quickly realize that we are just the antenna that taps into the vast well of consciousness. In other words, the humble messenger. I suppose sometimes, and out of nowhere, a story would pop into my head, and other times an idea might pop into my head, and I put it out into the ether or the universe or whatever it's called now, and allow it to gestate. And you know, when it emerges, I'm then fully drawn in, and I suppose I find myself inhabiting the story, and as well as that, feeling the emotion of the character. And I know people have rang me, some of my own family and others who shall remain nameless, who said they were in floods of tears reading a particular story. And that to me means so much, because when you think about it, there are some digits on a page, a piece of paper, and I think it creates, people talk about creativity in writing, but I think the creativity involved in looking at those digits and being able to see the pictures and feel the emotions, like that takes a lot of creativity as well. And I think it's important for writers to go there and feel the emotion and feel the joy and feel the pain. And I think it's the only way to write, you know. When at the start, as I said, for me, as I was what you'd call an older newcomer to writing. I was in my late 60s when I started to write, and as I said, an older newcomer, if you'll pardon the oxymoron, and it felt a little scary at the start, because you know, I was amazed to find myself subsumed completely into the tale, and kind of just the golfers and sportsmen talk about being in the zone, but that's what it's like. You're in the zone and you're just, nothing else kind of gets in. And I know my wife has threatened on numerous occasions to get treatment from me. And Paddy, well, maybe that might be the answer. But nowadays I enjoy being kind of whisked away to a parallel universe, and you know, kind of meeting my characters and navigating my way, I suppose, you know, mapless and compassless to, as Paddy says, an unknown destination. I never know when I start writing where the story is going to go or where the story is going to end. But I like to maybe take my readers on maybe a little journey south and then kind of a quick U-turn north. And people enjoy that, I think. I suppose there's also a stage like when the story is finished, and it can be a tricky one to know, but it's important to kind of have a feel for when the story is finished, because over-egging the pudding can take from the story. And there's been loads of examples where songwriters put an awful lot of effort into the A side of a song and really worked hard at it, and then they throw another one onto the flip side, and the flip side becomes a worldwide hit. How does that happen? I suppose writers sometimes express concerns about AI and what that threatens to do to the craft. But I suppose I'm not too concerned about it, because intelligent, emotionless manufacturing, as I call it, doesn't cut the mustard. I think there's one important facet missing from that, and that is intuition. It'll be a while, I think, before the computers kind of develop intuition. Maybe it will happen, I don't know. Don Miguel Ruiz, in his book The Four Agreements, which was based on the ancient Toltec wisdom, he described words as magic and emphasized the fact that we should endeavor to be impeccable with our word. He described words as a double-edged sword that, when used in a positive way, can lift spirits and promote healing. Conversely, when used in a negative way, words can engender fear and trigger unwellness. Words, he said, used in a wicked or immoral way, he compared to black magic. I think you'll all agree that if our global leaders, who shall remain nameless, were a little bit more impeccable with their words, the world might be a safer and better place. One of my stories, Careless Whispers, these were the tragic fallout from careless whispers or careless use of words. Another story in the collection called In Other Words. They're not side by side now, they're separated. But it deals with a woman who, through no fault of her own, fails to notice that her words change dramatically, causing consternation amongst her friends and family. Now, I was told to be brief, so I won't read the story, but what I'll do is I'll read a poem, as Paddy mentioned, associated with the story. Some of you, no, you won't identify with any of this. It's called Lost and Found. He's once a man and twice a child, I heard a cynic say, and it wasn't uttered in a kind or complimentary way. Children share a wisdom that, come adulthood, is gone. A slow rekindling came to light when I was 61. I've lost my cap, my glasses, and forgot my best friend's name. I've lost my youth and middle age, but hey, I won't complain. I've lost some dear and faithful friends, names now rarely spoken. I've lost the urge to change the world and fix what isn't broken. I've lost my fast annoyance when others make an error. I've lost my cocksure arrogance and annoyance with the weather. I've lost the need to fret about what others think of me. I've lost the lofty vanity that mirrors once did see. I've lost the need to be always right and thus make others wrong. I've lost the inhibitions that have kept me from my song. I've lost the blank refusal to be happy with my lot. I've lost the fear and terror of going to my plot. I found that friends and family are treasures to behold. I found that love and kindnesses are often left untold. I found a state of gratefulness for all that I have got. I found a quiet acceptance for the things that I have not. Now, I need to say, as I say, I was told to be brief, and I need to say a few thank you, to deliver a few thank yous. Just maybe, just to end that little piece, I leave you with another Eckhart Tolle quote. It says, "What a caterpillar calls end of life, we call a butterfly." So look, I've been blessed to be surrounded with fantastic people, and I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to the following. To the Mayor for taking time out of his busy schedule to do me the great honour of launching my book, and for his kind and flattering words. I think his attendance here tonight is proof that he is both Mayor of Limerick, City and County. We wish you every success in your term of office. And if I had, I'm thankful I didn't hear your pedigree beforehand, because I would be totally intimidated asking you. The Dominic Taylor of the Limerick Writers Centre. Without Dominic and the wonderful team at Limerick Writers Centre, this publication and many others would not have happened. To Dr. Paddy Fulham, who broke from buying red biros, for his eloquently written preface, wholehearted encouragement and insightful feedback. To Catherine Shields, as Dominic mentioned, for putting the finishing touches to the start, middle and end of my collection. To the members of Desmond Scribbler's Writers Group in Newcastle West for their ongoing support and wholesome encouragement, and there's a few people here tonight. And of course, a very important part of it is to the outlets who stock and sell my books. Tony Hayes' Newcastle West, The Dresser Newcastle West, Siopa Milsean, Abbeyfeale, O'Garvey's Post Office Rathkeale, Mahony's Bookstore Limerick, Daybreak Store Newport, John Ryan's Bookshop Nenagh. To the Longcourt House, again, special word of thanks to Siobhan for bringing all this together. To my wife Eleanor, my son Shane, my daughter Orla, my son-in-law Connor, and my two grandsons Darren and Gavin, who continuously support, teach and inspire me. Last but by no means least, to Norma, who not only did a great job as MC for me tonight, but who was also most gracious in her direction and assistance in the lead up to the launch. Thanks very much. I'll finish with one final Tolle quote. What a liberation to realise that the voice in my head is not who I am. Who am I then? The one who sees that. Thank you so much for your attention and your effort.
Thank you very much. I hope you all agree that we've had a very special and a very enjoyable evening. I think myself it has been one kind of redolent with optimism, hope, great kindness and great humour. Now we're going to end with humour as well, because we have one last guest for you, and that's the bowled Ger Liston. But before I call Ger on to bring the whole evening to a close, I just like to thank again all our guests, obviously Dominic, Dr. Paddy Fulham, the man of the evening, Pat McLoughlin, and especially the Mayor, John Moran. I'd also again like to thank you all, to remind you of what the Mayor said is to line up, buy the book, get the book signed. The money is going again this time to Milford Care Centre, and we are all in one way or another indebted to that particular institution. So to end the formalities, there are loads of sandwiches, there's loads of chat and lots of stories to be told, but we'll end with a short story from Ger Liston himself. Ger.
Point of the evening where we lowered the tone. I want to congratulate Pat on writing his books. I'd like to do it myself sometime, but I don't know if I'd had either the ability or the time, but anyway, Pat, you write the work. I try to do bits of other people's work, so tonight's is a story, a very short story. It's written by Seamus O'Rourke, whom I greatly admire, and it's called Awake. I thought you remember a few months ago the phone lines lit up anyway on the Joe Duffy show when RIP was being sold, or the rights of it, or whatever it was being sold to the Irish Times, and people were concerned whether it would be, the appeal would still be there for the RIP and how it would be handled. But anyway, I suppose we in Ireland, we have a great, with death, we really respect death. And, you know, when there's a death in the family, someone comes in, all the neighbours come in, and they help the family through the few days around the funeral. And this is just, as I say, it's the wake. Mrs. Hogan died at the age of 84. God bless her. And her husband Johnny, he tied a black cloth to the handle of the front door, and he left it open in case anyone that knew her might want to call and pay their respects. A lot of people called that night, wondering what age was she, and was she sick, or did she die of a sudden? Was she sick, Johnny? Johnny said she wasn't sick, and that she was in great form altogether, and that she'd ate an egg that morning for the breakfast, something she hadn't done in a long time. My God. And what time did she die, Johnny? Johnny said that she died sometime after eating the egg. My God, isn't that great? And what age was she? 84. Oh, she's a great age, Johnny. Johnny said it was a great age to be living at, but it wasn't a great age to be dying at. And the women of the country, they brought sandwiches, and some brought tins of biscuits that were probably left over since Christmas. And then they were close to God. They brought trays of buns that they'd baked the night before. They must have had inside information. Some people called on the way to the bingo. Others called on the way to the pub and stayed. Francie Bowen, who had been drinking in town all day, called in on the way home, and he ate a plate of cheese sandwiches. You would swear he hadn't ate a bite in a week. Mrs. Frigate, who wasn't Irish, said it was a great party altogether. And then she lost the run of herself. She said she'd not be eating an egg again in a hurry. And then she laughed like an Egypt. The priest, who was there all day, shook hands with Johnny and went home. The local councillor called, and he shook hands with everyone. And then he went away to a meeting. He said he had to go because he'd left the car running. Some said she'd a good life. Others said she'd a hard life. But most of them agreed that she'd a long life. Johnny said he used to hear her singing when she'd be making the dinner. Some people found it hard to get words of sympathy. Others were good at it. Some people, they did a lot of hugging of Johnny and whispering in his ear and trying to make him cry. Others said nothing at all. When they said the rosary that night, Johnny looked sad. He didn't cry. And the ones that were crying are ones that would be crying anyway. Mrs. Hogan was 84, and she died of a sudden. God bless her.